Now, quite often what you'll find is that grade C is the largest percentage of your stock holding. And that's what you should be liquidating when you go on sale, not your grade A product. But the fact remains, you rarely see something go from grade C to grade A because your marketing gets better. So if you go too deep on your product, you end up having to clear it and you go on sale, or worse, you end up closing your business because you haven't moved through that stock. You need to be turning that inventory 4 times a year, which means moving through it in 3 months. And purchase frequency is one of the keys to lifetime value and to revenue growth. If we get that compounding nature of repeat customers coming back as well as acquiring new ones, that's where the rapid scale starts to come from. Welcome to episode 7 of the E-Hustle. I'm Paul Waddy. Today I'm talking about a big issue, and that is confronting the fact that most of your products won't work, and that's okay. Now, as founders, we all have a bias, and that is we tend to look at our products through rose-colored glasses, and we can't understand why they're not all home runs, and that can seriously hold back our growth. And the 80-20 rule has to apply here in the way we do our buying. That is to say that 80% of our revenue is likely to come from 20% of our product range. Now, that's not something I made up. That's a renowned fact called the Pareto Principle. So important is it in e-commerce that Shopify actually has a default report just dedicated to this. Go and check it out. It's called the ABC analysis. More on that shortly. Yeah, sure. Now let's expand on the fact that business owners will often get stuck on the fact that they expect every product they drop to be a winner. Now, I talk about this a lot when I challenge businesses to think about breadth over depth, because product choice has always been a key to revenue growth. Now, unless you've invented a needle in a haystack business like the Theragun, a single product business, and those do exist, the majority of businesses are going to have to constantly iterate and evolve on their product to find that winning combination. I've seen it many times before where businesses usually get a little bit of traction with a certain product range and then kind of get stuck. And they wonder why their repeat purchase rate is low, or they wonder why they can't break through into increasing the size of their total addressable market. There's a simple fact, and that is that people are looking to buy interesting products. Now, if you've had a customer, they've bought from you and 3 months goes by and they haven't bought again from you, the chances are that they just don't need what you're selling. So what you've got to do is really think about showing them new product. And the other key thing to remember here is that 80-20 rule that I mentioned earlier is that 80% of your products might be poor sellers, grade C, or okay sellers, grade B, and 20% is likely to be that red hot product that you just repeat and repeat and repeat. So let's think about that. If you're in women's fashion and you put out 10 dresses, 2 are likely to work. If you put out 20 dresses, 4 are likely to work. If you put out 100 dresses, 20 are likely to work. So that is the direct correlation between the breadth of a range and the revenue growth, the conversion rate, the amount of customers that you'll get. Now, again, I don't want to sit here and say that you need to throw 1,000 SKUs into your business, but there are rules in place that also stop you from overspending. So think about what I'm saying here. I want to challenge you to put out more product into your stores, into your online stores, but I want you to be responsible with how much stock you buy. And what's that metric that forces you to be responsible with how much stock you should buy? That's your open to buy. So there is a system in place. It's not about throwing as much breadth as possible. It's about replenishing your grade A stock, the stock that's driving that 80% of revenue. But it's then about adding new product into the mix so that we build out our core range over time. How much stock do we put into our new product mix? Well, always ordering within your open to buy. That's number one. That's your product budget. And secondly, not ordering so much that it takes you 6 months or 12 months to move through your stock. The average e-commerce business that's importing stock from China or elsewhere should be looking at no more than 3 months worth of cover. So what I mean there is ordering a product, let's say this t-shirt, and only ordering enough to move through in 3 months or 90 days. Yeah, so it's not always the marketing that's the problem here. And I speak from experience. I've spoken to many business owners, including in my own business, where I have that 80-20 rule at play. So 20% of my product is going really, really well. And then what sometimes happens is that stock runs out, it's out of stock, or our revenue starts to just be capped a little bit at a certain level, and the conversation shifts to marketing. Just make that product sell. Now, that just doesn't happen. Eyeballs on product is generally not the problem. How many times have you dialed up your marketing spend only to see it become more inefficient? That is because there's a saying, cream always rises to the top, right? And the same applies with your product. There just is that 20% that'll be bestsellers. And I have this saying that a dog will always be a dog. If you've got a grade C product, which is the definition of grade C in your ABC analysis in Shopify, is it only drives 5% of your revenue. Grade B product drives 15%. Grade A drives 80%. So grade C products are driving nothing. You could delete it from your business and you'll lose 5% of your daily sales. Now, quite often what you'll find is that grade C is the largest percentage of your stock holding. And that's what you should be liquidating when you go on sale, not your grade A product. But the fact remains, you rarely see something go from grade C to grade A because your marketing gets better. So what I'm saying here, particularly to founders, is just understand the 80-20 rule, and it's unlikely that all your products are going to be winners. In fact, that rule is going to be closer to 20%. So to increase your chance of breaking through that next revenue bracket, you've really got to think about, are you putting enough out there? It's not exactly throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks, but it also kind of is. Again, I'm not saying 1,000 SKUs. Your open to buy will force you to be responsible with how much you're spending. And I am saying always replenish grade A first, but then turn your attention to what's next. Oftentimes I'll look at a business and the founder or the buyer will say, here's our new range. We're expecting to do X amount of revenue from it. It's going to be great. My immediate question is, that's great. What's next? And that's what your customer is thinking. What else have you got? And you can be sure that if you're going up against the big boys, they're dropping product every month. Sometimes, if you're in fashion, 2 or 3 times a month. There's no denying that increasing our product range increases our revenue and our conversion rate. I'm not talking about cannibalizing. That's a different matter. How to extend your product collection is a different topic, not for today. I'm not saying do 10 variants of the same t-shirt. Variants can also be the enemy, along with depth. I'm thinking about occasions. What's next? You're in the mood to go on holidays. You're buying for travel. What else do you need? You're redecorating your bedroom. What else do you need for the bedroom? That's a different topic. What I am saying or suggesting is that one way to think about your online store is to imagine it in a physical mall or shopping center. If you were to go and visit your store and you had everything laid out on the shelves, is it appealing for a customer? If I was then to leave that store and go into your next 3 competitors who are next to you, would your range stack up to them? Or would the customer choose them over you? Because in your store, there's 30 products. In theirs, there's 90. That is how consumers think. So we do have to compete. We're talking here about wanting to be the best, but are we even competing with our competitors on product range? It's really important. So we've got to understand that some of our product won't work. Some will be great. 80-20 rule. Let's go after the ones that work and let's scale on the back of that. But really, that'll tap out. It will. And your customers will want to come back to you, but you've got nothing to show them. So keep building out that robust 12-month product range because that's going to be one of the keys to your growth. Look, the way that we can work with this reality instead of denying it is by building out that 12-month product roadmap in advance. And just thinking about, if I have an open to buy, and we've talked about open to buy before, but essentially it's your buying budget. It's your COGS times your planned sales. We'll talk about that later. So what you should be doing is looking at your open to buy. Let's say it's 100,000, replenishing your grade A product. Shopify will tell you that. Replenishing it not too deep. How do I know what's too deep? Let's just say you should be, if you're importing, you should be on 3 months cover. If you're buying locally, you should be on 2-3 weeks cover, depending on how quickly you turn around your product. If I take my open to buy and I first concentrate on my grade A product and I repeat that, how much do I buy? I stay under 90 days. If I sell one of these t-shirts a day, then I should be buying 90, not 300, because my supplier says we need 300. That's a problem. You'll eventually run out of cash. So after I've done my replenishment, I take what's left and I take that and I tip it into new product. How do I know not to go overboard with what I'm buying? Well, your planned sales times your COGS is how much you've got to buy. So as your sales targets go up, your open to buy goes up. And it's impossible that you'll be tipping all of that open to buy into replenishment because only 20% of your inventory is likely to need replenishment. So that forces you to look elsewhere. Unfortunately, too many businesses go deep and they just buy quantity, quantity, quantity. That's not the answer. The answer is certainly taking that predefined open to buy, which is not my number, that's a universal metric in buying, and taking that and allocating it across a category mix that you think is going to drive you to that next level. There's no question that the breadth of a range can help with your chances of success. Again, there are rules. So I'm not here saying throw all your money at the wall and buy as much product as you can. So people will say, well, that's crazy. You'll run out of money. Open to buy caps that out. Your open to buy is there. But you should always, make sure that you're replenishing. Yes, remember I said replenish first, but only grade A. Why do you bother replenishing grade B inventory, which drives 15% of your revenue? Why would you possibly bother grade C, replenishing grade C, which drives 5% of your revenue? But I see it a lot. So start with your ABC analysis. Start by replenishing grade A stock. Secondly, order enough for no more than 90 days. Then third, take what's left and invest it in something new, but don't cannibalize. I don't need 10 variants of this. Cannibalization is not the answer here. We don't want choice by saying, let's get that or that or that or that. Let's get the t-shirt and the hat. Let's get the shoes and the socks. So there's a real catch there between working out how many of the same category do I actually need? How many variants do I actually need? And thinking about, okay, the consumer is motivated to buy products to go to the gym. Instead of doing 100 gym shirts, do I have 20 gym shirts, 20 track pants, 20 shorts, 20 caps, water bottles? Building out that capsule, building out that collection, making sure that when the consumer's in the mood to buy a product for an occasion, because that's how they buy. They don't just stumble across your site and say, I need to buy your products. There's an intent. There's a purchase intent. What's the intent when someone searches for your product? When they're in that moment, what problem are they solving? Are they going on holidays? Are they spring cleaning? Are they hitting the gym because it's the start of the new year? Great. Find that motivation and cater to it. It's not just t-shirts, it's not just shorts. It's the motivation, it's the purpose, and making sure that when they hit your site, that you've absolutely got that capsule, that collection, that moment absolutely stitched up so that there's no reason that they'd leave your site to go to a competitor. You've got the range, you've got the choice that will nail that sale on the day. If someone says we don't have the budget to keep launching new products at high frequency, that's nonsense because there is a budget that is predetermined by open to buy. So that means if you're targeting $1 million in sales and your COGS is 30%, you have $300,000 to spend. If you're targeting $100,000 in sales, your COGS is 30%, you have $10,000 to spend. So there's a budget. There's a budget there, right? So the mistake that often happens is that people will say, okay, I've done my replenishment and then I'm going to buy some new product and, that's great, but then they don't bump their sales target up. So what you need to understand here is that open to buy and sales are tied together. The problem that we have is when people spend their open to buy but don't adjust their sales target up, you'll run out of cash. That's when you blow your budget. So if we have a desire to add more product, how do I free up the budget to add more product to my range? You need to increase your sales target. And why wouldn't I increase my sales target? If I'm getting new product, I absolutely should be increasing my sales target. You should be taking your baseline sales for the month and adding expected sales from new product. So as my revenue targets go up, so does my buying budget. Once again, if I leave my revenue target the same, but then add all this new product, you will run out of cash. So those two numbers are tied. So I think it's really important that people get familiar with the concept of open to buy, which is something that I bang on about a lot because people are glued to their marketing spend. But the reality is most people spend more on product, but don't actually know the formula. And there is a formula to buying. Breadth over depth is absolutely one of the keys. I've said this before. There's a formula for just about everything in e-commerce. There's a formula to how much depth you should buy. The customer does not care if you have 300 of these t-shirts or 100. They just care that it's available. So if you go too deep on your product, you end up having to clear it and you go on sale, or worse, you end up closing your business because you haven't moved through that stock. You need to be turning that inventory 4 times a year, which means moving through it in 3 months. So depth, just buy for your target cover, which is usually 3 months. Then put the rest into breadth. So again, I'm not saying go breadth over depth in terms of neglecting to buy enough stock. That's never a problem. People usually buy too much depth and then they have nothing else, and we're selling the same product on the site for 3 or 4 months, which is boring. You go into most of the big retailers, look at the way they're VMing their online stores, go into the physical stores and look at the way they're changing them every week. That's the pace that we have to move at. The key takeaway for business owners listening to this is stick to the 80-20 rule. It'll never fail you. Don't believe me, go into Shopify and have a look. They've built a report on the back of this. It's called your ABC analysis. So go away and check now and see where your grade A product sits. It should be around that 20% mark. So again, thinking about, has your business just tapped out a little bit and the growth is a little bit hard to come by? People have bought your product and they're saying, what next? And you've also got to remember that, particularly if you're selling a good product, people might not need to top it up as frequently as you would like them to. And purchase frequency is one of the keys to lifetime value and to revenue growth. If we get that compounding nature of repeat customers coming back as well as acquiring new ones, that's where the rapid scale starts to come from. So adding new product categories particularly increases the size of your total addressable market. So that's one way to grow, is increasing the size of your addressable market. The other way to grow is to bring back those customers who have bought your product. They don't need it again, but they want to know, what else have you got? So that's where new product can absolutely drive rapid revenue growth. And when you scale your marketing spend or your paid media, your meta ads and so on, it's so much easier to scale on the back of good news, and dropping product is good news. When you're trying to scale on the back of nothing, that's hard work. The time to scale is on the back of doing cool stuff. And what better cool stuff to do than drop amazing product frequently?